Are you starting?
Yes.
Jesus. Hey, hi. Fantastic way to start. Excellent.
There's like 11 messages saying we are live.
All right. Well, it's live. That's what we get. That's how we start. Hi, y'all. I'm Michael Lane. I'm the president of LiftPort Group. Please ignore the idiocy behind the late momentary start there. Um, Really glad that y'all are here. We have been working hard. One of the comments from the team earlier today was, "Didn't we just do this, 2 weeks ago?" And the truth is, we did. This is a normally a monthly cadence. That's what we're trying to get into. But our last event got pushed, um, and so the schedule got a little bit off. So this is our regular cadence, and this is what we're going to be doing. We are typically aiming for the first Wednesday of the month for the ongoing shows. So if you're a little confused about how we got started, that's where we are. Because you're right, it was a little. It's a little. We're trying to build that cadence and schedule. Okay, by way of introductions, I've been working on the space elevator for nearly 25 years, various versions of it. But LiftPort, this version of LiftPort is brand new, so really excited about what we're doing. We're about 8 months into a program. We've got slightly less than 800 days that we've burned. So it's our job to deliver this product by Q4 2028, October 4th, 2028. All right, Sean, go ahead. What do you got?
Yep. My name
Introduce
is Sean Key. I am the CEO of Better Futures. I've known Michael since 2000. I knew of him and talked to him since 2005. Did an internship with him in 2006. Wound up working for him until the company closed. The first iteration of LiftPort closed, and then I went on to do other things for a while. We danced around the idea of trying to start a Huffington Post type of company for advanced technologies. Um, that one was a good idea, just couldn't get the funding to get the legs going on that one. Turns out media is really a lot about branding and marketing, and that is something I will discuss later. Um, and so my background is I left banking. I have a master's MBA with concentration in finance. Of course, I have a background with the space industry, but had a big gap. So coming back, it was a lot of learning I had to do. And a lot of my writing is about the things I'm learning about the industry and observations from an outsider's perspective versus someone that's been in the industry, which can shed some light on a lot of things. So, and that's
Sean, put your link to the newsletter in the chat, please. Wes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Wes Ferris. I'm the director of Space Rights LLC and a contractor with LiftPort Group. I'm coming in on the side of property rights in outer space, which has been my focus of work for around 2 decades, and we'll explain why this fits into the project, especially later tonight.
Terrific. Thank you, sir. Jonathan Connell, please. Suddenly, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, there was an ambulance going past. Jonathan Connell, head of engineering at LiftPort. My degree was electronics, but I've become multidiscipline over the year. You rarely specialize in the thing you were trained to do. And this job at LiftPort is the most multidiscipline thing you can imagine. If you love physics and engineering and chemistry and mechanics, then this is heaven. I've never had so much fun. I've never learned so much either. Previously, I worked for Gravitics, who announced today that they have a contract with Lockheed Martin of national importance. I think we all know what that is, but well done, guys. You worked hard for it.
You're giving yourself some credit. Number 6 employee at Gravitics. So right there when the first foundations were being set up. So nice job, and congrats to your friends. We're big fans of Groupidics. That was
I
that's
told you.
that's their second big contract this year. Not
Second
to
big contract, and it's no secret that they're going to go public any minute. There's probably not a coincidence the timing on this, but it's kind of impressive. I said to Colin, the president there, 5 years ago now, Lockheed Martin will be buying you in about 5 years' time, and I was off by a couple of years, but that'll happen.
right on. Joseph Lauren, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Joseph Loran. I'm the engineering intern here. I have about 2 days left. So yeah, that's a little sad. I've learned a lot from these people you see in front of you. Sean being the finance wizard, Wes being amazing at law, Connell being an amazing mentor, and Lane being Lane. But yeah, so I'm really excited for this show tonight and to show you guys what we've been working on.
Terrific. We're going to miss you. You've been great having you here this summer. So keep up the good work, sir. It's been a pleasure working with you this summer.
I want to interject something real quick. Michael, you've been 2 for 2 on interns since I've been back.
So you've been what? Sorry?
2 for 2 for interns since I've been back.
Oh no, we have a long storied history. Joseph has some pretty big shoes to fill because our intern track record is off the charts. There are 6 interns that have gone on to become PhDs, so that's one path. And there's 6 that have gone on to be either CEOs of their own company or senior leadership in somebody else's company. So you got work to do, buddy, but you're off to a good start. So glad. It was really good to have you. And, credit where it's due. Sean Key was an intern 20 years ago at this very company. So, and I wasn't going to bring it up right now, but I interviewed one intern today. They were a little premature because we don't usually do our intern stuff until January, but they wanted to have a conversation. So I talked to a student at the University of Alaska today. Great kid, liked him, good first impression. But this early in the stage, it's really hard to start picking somebody. So I told him to apply formally in. And this is one of the things I was going to talk about anyway, so I guess I'm going to go out of order. But I told them to go ahead and apply in January, and we've got a section on the website. Go to the contact form; it's very clearly there. But we love our interns. My hope. So this year we had Joseph, just one. Last year, Christina, just one. The year before, and the year before that, and the year before that, we had 2. And I'm hoping that this next round, assuming we get capital in November, which is one of the things we'll talk about in a little while, assuming that happens, I'm hoping that we have 2 or 4 positions. We'll open screening in January. In January, we'll open screening. If you don't have your application in January, you will not get in because by February, we're already starting to make some decisions. It is highly competitive, but for the first time in years, maybe 20 years, we might have as many as 4 positions. So that's going to be pretty exciting. So I was going to bring that up later, but since we're talking interns, that's what we're going to do. All right.
Quickly before we move on, I know I'm up next. For any potential people who want to get internships out there, my biggest tip right now is do not assume a company is too busy to talk to you. You are important. They want to hear from you, and do not assume you are not good enough. Go have those conversations, make connections, and you'll get a lot further than that than just applying online. Be yourself, basically.
I'm going to add to that. Do something that makes you stand out, because You have to build something, you have to break something, and you have to demonstrate that you've learned something in those steps. And Joseph did that. Christina did that. Everybody does that. So build something, break something, learn from it. Yeah. John, did you want to add to that? Because he was your Padawan most of the summer. So you got anything to say?
Yeah, we have given him a capstone such that the work he's done, simulation work done, will read on a control system which we will patent to facilitate our business, basically. And the groundwork that Joseph has done will get his name on that patent. And that's unusual for an intern. So I think that's important to give him credit. And there it is. That's what's going to happen.
He will be our first intern that has gotten a patent. We've had some that have had some remarkable stuff. One of our interns had an idea so good that we took it to the chief scientist of U.S. Space Force. That's what this coin is the chief scientist. One of our interns had an idea so good we took it to Space Force. But Joseph will be the first patent intern that gets a patent. So that's pretty badass, buddy. Both of you guys, really great work this summer. Thank you. All right, let's switch gears. We're 12 minutes in. I wasted 2 of them by not even knowing we were live. Joseph, go ahead. Let's talk about better futures.
I shared something. Are you guys able to put it on screen here? All right, perfect. So basically, what one of the things I've been tasked with numerous things. Michael doesn't give you one task. He makes sure you're well-rounded. Let's put it that way. So I was really working with Lovable and the finance side of things, Better Futures, Sean's spin-off kind of company. Not sure exactly how to word that, but basically what we've been doing is we've been making this page for all of his newsletters and the podcast of the unknown quantity to live on. So we have our homepage, we have our contact us, we even have a link to go back to the main LiftPort website, and we'll have all of his newsletters from Substack right in here for all of you to come read, and it'll be one centralized area to get all of your space, finance, and just space updates from. So that's really big for us. And as we start to fill this out in the upcoming days, we'll add to our team and update our about section through here. But anybody who is here and is seeing this, even if you're not watching this live, I encourage you to go sign up. You'll get news updates and everything else that we offer here. Later on in the future, we're going to keep adding to this, and we are going to expand it to allow for some premium content that other people may want to pay for, but we will also be keeping a very large free section for our people like we are now. You can reach these articles not only through here, but also on Sean's LinkedIn and Substack. If you go into these, not only the newsletters, the podcasts are a little bit bland right now as we are linking directly, but you'll have a link to go back to his other websites and find out where his original content came from. And that is where we are going with this.
Terrific. I want to point out that we've got north of 600 hours of content in various shows going all the way back to 2020. We've gotten pretty good at putting together shows, whether that's online conferences, technical conferences, a podcast with the unknown quantity, Mars Society, Mars Coin, Blue Marble Week, Conversations of the Future. We have a lot of series of pretty deep technical one-on-one conversations. We've had, I just mentioned the chief scientist of Space Force. We've also had 4-star General Chance Salzman from Space Force, former NASA administrators, associate administrators, chief historian of NASA, chief economist of NASA, nominated but not accepted chief financial officer of NASA. We've had some pretty major stuff, and then stuff that you've never ever heard of also in there. That's pretty important. So it's well curated. There's a ton of stuff there. And then Sean's newsletter is getting some real traction. It is a source of information, and the tier method that he created, we use it. It's a part of our model building tools. So it's insight that is as useful and important. So. All right, let's bring on Sean, and what are we talking about here?
Well,
you got a new advisor. Sure,
Yeah.
Let's talk more about Better Futures.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Better Futures. So whenever I came on the scene to come back in the industry, I reached out to Michael because I've been in contact with him for years and years, and he asked me if I was interested. I said, yeah, sure. And so I stepped in the role. And now Michael saw this as video productions and stuff. I saw something bigger. I saw the potential for it to be the Bloomberg of the commercial space industry. I still say it's going to be the Bloomberg commercial space industry. Every bit of my fiber is working towards being the Bloomberg of the commercial space industry. That's the reason why I write the way I do. And that's also the reason why I'm very passionate about what we do. But I come to the problem is that I got to have a little bit more help understanding how to get the visuals out there, get the videos out there. So I reached out to a friend of mine who is an actress. She's not a big actress. She just does a little bit of local work. She's done some indie films, small budget films, been low key parts, but she still has her own studio. She has connections with a lot of studios and a lot of give you an example. She knows how to pitch to Prime, the Amazon Prime. She knows how to pitch to Spotify. She knows how to pitch to Netflix and Disney and all of them. And so when I sit down talking with her and I asked her if she wants to be an advisor, she said, yeah, she'd love to, which is great. Now I got to go and sit on her podcast as a return of favor, but that's cool. But as I was telling her, my goal is I want to create a channel that is commercial space industry. I want to load it up with shows and stuff like that. And then she hit me up with, well, have you thought about pitching to one of these primes out there, a series of shows, which kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, but the competitor in me,
Here in the headlights moment, yeah,
competitor in me took over and said, hell yeah, let's do this. So there's some exciting stuff that's coming down the pipe for Better Future, especially on the podcast side. Interesting enough, on the publishing side, I have someone that might be interested in doing a similar role for the publishing side. So we're working in that direction, but I do have an advisor for the podcast side. We are working on creating at least fundamentally a very solid YouTube, clean up the YouTube channel a little bit, make it more presentable, promotable, make it into an actual channel. There's a lot of information. As Michael said, there's 600 hours worth of video on there. Heck, with the unknown quantities, 127 episodes.
Right.
There's some really good gems in there, folks. So make sure you get in there and check them out. As far as my writing is an observation about the commercial space industry. Some of it needs to be seen because you kind of get into a bubble, guys. I'm trying to get you out of it. And I'm trying to help other people come into the industry and understand what they're going to, the risk and the opportunities are. And remember, for every problem or every critic out there said, well, why don't you do this? Why do this or not this? Look, those are problems to be solved. Those are an opportunity to be made. They're not really critiques. They're just opportunities to be made. So, and when I come back next time, we're going to talk about some of my writings.
Pretty neat. I want to point out we've had some people question like why Better Futures exists at all. Why do we have a media brand? That goes all the way back to the earliest days working with Edwards. when we were still under the NASA umbrella, it is vital to tell the story of what we're doing, right? We spend all this time doing hard engineering, and Jonathan and Joseph are going to talk about some of that, and Wes is going to talk about the policy piece of it, and that's deep in the weeds. And most people don't need to and don't want to know that level of stuff. But telling the story of what we're doing is one of the reasons we still exist after all this time, is that people care about what we're doing and they want to be involved. So Better Futures is pretty core. It's as with the rest of how LiftPort is built, it's called LiftPort Group for a reason. We are building out active subsidiaries in each of these areas as both tactical value and revenues, and also strategic value of big picture. How do we get this elevator built? So,
nice and there's a value in that story. I mean, there's a learning value. There's even just a drama value.
Yeah,
it's that old thing about if a tree falls in a forest and nobody sees it and nobody hears it, does it make any noise? Right. And you can have a great product, the perfect product, but if you don't market as hard as you make great products, you will fail. You can have a bad product with great marketing and you'll be fairly successful. We've got a great product, great marketing. So it's a necessary thing.
Right on. Okay. Wes, let's go ahead and go. I'm going to turn on my light because apparently I didn't do that before we started here. Go ahead, Wes.
Okay. Well, speaking of things that affect everybody, right now, the United Nations Committee on Peaceful Use of Outer Space is working on what could formulate the basis of a new treaty. If any new space treaty is to formulate, that's the body of the UN in which it would develop. Did you say? Am I being heard here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I saw something pop up in the private chat. And so they've completed what's called a draft set of initial recommendations on for space resource utilization, and it's to be voted on next year. In between now and then, they've slid in some language that is really dangerous toward the concept of private property rights in space. There's a piece of the draft text. It's a suggested portion of the draft, but it shouldn't be able to stick. It's straight from what's called the Moon Treaty. And it says neither the surface or the subsurface of the moon or any part thereof shall become property of any state, goes on to say, or any non-governmental entity or any natural person. Now that's everybody. So from a top-down level, it's even though this language from the Moon Treaty, which is a kind of a failed treaty, never really caught on, it's been slipped into this updated set of principles at the last second. Now I know who did it. I mean, I'll just be honest. It was China. It matches up with the contribution of their delegation. Right. You paid attention to the proceedings. Why this shouldn't, like, not only does it affect all natural persons, and there should be like legions and legions of pissed off natural persons, including you and me and everybody listening about this. Right. Is that it's under the auspices of the United Nations, and since it's under the auspices of the United Nations, it should follow a core principle of the United Nations called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where Article 17 says everybody shall have the right to property and nobody shall arbitrarily be denied that right. This proposed text is contrary to the UN's own foundational principle. So it needs to be pointed out on the United Nations level that if this is to be developed under the UN, it shouldn't exist. It's not only does it say non-natural persons can't have property, but it arbitrarily denies it without a vote. So it's a direct contradiction of the UN's own founding principles. Most people don't really care about that, but since it's being developed under the UN, this should not come to pass. So more attention needs to be between now and next year's Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. There needs to be a lot more volume and attention put on this potential clause, like as to who did it, the fact that it sneaks in this language from a very unpopular treaty, and the fact that it's contrary to the UN's own founding principles.
How does something like that get stuck in and then not? It's not, nobody agreed to it. They just like inserted it into the docs as a draft. But are they able to do that? Like, doesn't it?
So the chairman of this working group puts together a summary of all the delegates' contributions. So it's just a contribution, but if it slides in as a final text, then it serves as the basis for a new treaty, and that really just there's more. If more attention is pointed out to that, then I think that this proposed text won't pass. Other than that, it's there's a lot of good things to this proposed overall text, saying that resource utilization isn't inherently a violation of the Outer Space Treaty. That part's good. That part everybody's agreed on for about 5 years. It's just funny that in this very last updated draft that got slipped in. And so,
what's the timeline for this draft, and then who's going to get the final review to say up or down the language is going to work or not work?
It would be voted on in next year's next March or April, the UN Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Fortunately, I'm a member of Space Renaissance International. It's a non-governmental organization that has speaking status. So it's like not under my watch. Like if I get to address this, that's where I'm going to point this out.
Right.
But I hope to do that before that time. I hope to point it out to like delegations, as many of the natural persons as I possibly can, and get some momentum against that proposed text.
We're going to be talking about some of the ideas that you have in mind in a little while, but as an observer, as a speaker, you don't have any authority, though. That's not what SRI.
No voting capacity. No voting capacity. Right. But that way, I don't. I've been to about 3 of these United Nations meetings as what's called a silent observer, where you basically I just hang out in the hallways and at this time.
Is this in Vienna or is this in New York?
Vienna. This would be in Vienna. I hope that it doesn't go on to a full General Assembly vote in New York with this text in it.
Right.
But that would be the next step if the subcommittee in Vienna approves it. It would go on to the plenary committee on peaceful use of outer space, and then on to New York for a General Assembly resolution. Okay. That's what I don't want, is for this text to be in a General Assembly resolution.
Right. Okay, cool. I'm going to take over the mic here for a couple minutes. I want to show some of the stuff we've been doing in the background. Again, not so much engineering, but more operations side of things. Let me just pull up my screen here. Plenty of updates on the website. I gotta say, with 210 days since we officially started back in, we started officially January 8th. Having 210 days just tick, 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 tick away gives me a heart attack every single time I come to the website. It's pretty entertaining, and it's also pretty nerve-wracking. So come in, take a look at the website. There have been some fairly big updates here. We posted some of our updates. The about page didn't change very much. I think most of those folks that are watching the show have already been here. That hasn't changed a lot. There's a little bit of detail work that we haven't really been releasing. We're working on a bunch of files. We're working on developing some AI tools. I think everybody knows that. Next up is starting to formalize our technical advisory council. This is the thing that we're pretty excited about. We've talked about it a tiny bit, but this will be the world's first dedicated space elevator ribbon test. And we're going to talk a lot about materials later today. So just kind of have that in the back of your head. Materials are not everybody's favorite subject, but I promise you, you cannot build an elevator on the moon without them. This section of the site is the thing that's gotten the most updates. There's a whole section on Fast Mover. That's our satellite. These dates and stuff are pretty locked in. We're looking at November 2026 to launch this thing. I'm going to tell everybody, I've been telling everybody, this is the riskiest rocket in the world. We have no idea whether it's going to work. We are, in this case, getting what we paid for. So we didn't pay a very lot to get this thing launched. And we're hoping that the folks from InnoSpace are able to pull this off. It's going to launch out of Brazil. Currently, what the phrase is, no earlier than NET, no earlier than November 2026. So we're throwing in, Q4 as a general target. So there's a little bit of information there, and then quite a bit of new information here. The team about 3 weeks ago put an awful lot of effort into creating both a set of milestones and budget requirements. We've got a very strong $500,000 budget. We're developing the second part of that. Step 2 is 4.5 million, and step 3 is 15 million. Total of 20 million, and that is the sum of what we're aiming for phase A. Assuming we can stay on track with phase A capitalization, we are on track for our 790-day first lift in with the elevator. Now, pending that, if we don't get the capital on time, we definitely cannot hit that 790-day mark. So the next few weeks, the next few months are going to be pretty darn important. We are hopeful for some stuff that happens in November. I want to assure everybody this is not an offer for securities. Don't ever call me about something like that. But that's what we're doing, right? This is not a public solicitation. I don't want to hear from you about this topic because that's not how it works. But that said, we are trying to capitalize our project. I talked last session about this development of a partnership where we go to the clients that will eventually use the elevator and ask them to become investors. So investor clients, as a way of lowering their long-term freight rates and also capitalizing our project. And that has been a relatively successful strategy. I'm not saying that we won't take venture capital. We definitely will, but it is not a really great fit for where we're at right now. We certainly want to bring in debt financing as part of this. And of course, we would love to have governmental contracts, research projects, that sort of thing. So that's where we are. These programs are pretty darn important, right? You just heard from Wes talking about space property rights. We're developing our technical advisory council. This, I think, is going to be one of the pillars that we depend upon as we formalize our relationships with people. You already know that we're building a data lake. You already know that we're building out a bespoke AI tool. We've had a lot of success with that recently. And of course, the stuff that we're doing in the background, robots, lifters, anchor stations. John's going to talk about the truss here in a little while. And I had 3 different education outreach programs all happening this week. So lots of meetings. So this page gives you a little bit of information about where we are. Not much has changed on the LiftPort webpage. The Lunar Elevator webpage. and the progress webpage is getting a pretty substantial overhaul. We have these rolling appendices of reports. I probably have, no exaggeration, I probably have 8 or 12 of these on my hard drive ready to upload. We've already got a dozen up here. And what we're also doing is we're tracking moments where reports have been superseded by later topics. So this is probably your best way of staying on track with the program as it unfolds, as we publicly disclose things. I'm going to yield back my time and bring on our next guest, but I'm going to come back to some other website updates here in a moment. Stop sharing this. All right. Boy, a bunch of notes here. What do we got here? Okay, don't care about that. Who is up next? Joseph is up next. Let's bring you on about.
Is it not John?
Is it John? Hold on. I don't have John. I have Joseph. Flip a coin, guys. But let's go with Joseph.
Okay. So I have only a few minutes right now, and I have a few minutes later. Later, I will show you guys the simulation I've been working on. But I want to take a few minutes to explain why this is so important. I know John put some emphasis on this earlier, but if you think about something that is out in space, if it's moving, there can be issues. Obviously, we want a rocket to move. We want other things to move. But if we have a station at L1 or we have a station at the moon, we don't necessarily want either of those things to, move. That would be bad. If the moon started coming towards us, I think we would be in a lot of trouble. So one really important thing is for us to understand exactly how our ribbon is going to move. If it's going to move just in this, if it's going to come towards us away at an angle. There are so many different possible movements for it. So we need to understand what kind of stresses, strains, all that stuff, if it's going to break any of that. So with that being said, that's exactly why this simulation is so important, is because you can put all these pieces together, and even if they hold without any initial movement is going to break them if they're on the brink of breaking. There's concepts I'll get into later, such as Moore's circle. That's a really big thing because it changes the stress and strain dependent on the angle of twist, which will also change with gravity. Our weight will change with gravity. All these other forces, they don't only change with gravity, they change with weight, they change with dimensions of payloads. They change with just about everything you can imagine and then some. I guarantee me nor John will know everything that is going to happen before it happens, and we can eliminate as many of the factors as we can think of. But when you're sending a crew in a rocket up into space, NASA, the first time they did it, there's no way they thought of every single force acting on it. I'm sure they got out there and they figured out, oh, there's a micro asteroid out there, something. There's a million things that can happen. So in my simulation, we really boiled it down to what are the key forces happening here? How do we fix this? Where do our issues lie? What are the issues? And truth be told, we had issues with the harmonics of everything. If the resonance is equal to the same resonance as the natural frequency of our material, that creates big issues. I was talking with John about this a long time ago, and a very big thing that you can think about on how this is a big issue is if you think of and this is an analogy he gave me, but if you think of a washer and it's spinning, it's spinning, it's spinning, as it starts to slow down, you'll see in a certain frequency, it'll start to rattle a lot more. And that's a big issue. And that's something that we've been working on, not only myself, but me and John collectively. Am I out of time, guys? I can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah. Go a little bit farther about why this matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big picture. Big picture.
Big picture on why this matters is beyond just what our mission. I even beyond our mission. If we screw up out there could be significant impacts for us here on Earth. Let's say a station from L1 broke because we didn't have everything in equilibrium.
Right.
And it started moving back towards Earth, and it didn't all get burned up in the atmosphere. There goes Tokyo. or
Maybe I wouldn't have put it quite the same way, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So beyond just our mission, this matters tremendously for everyone. This math, we can't get it wrong.
We can't get it wrong. That's where I was aiming for, right? Getting it wrong has catastrophic implications. John, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. I'd like to add that traditionally this would be done with FEA, and that won't work at this aspect ratio. So because we have some tuned space AIs, which are very savvy about math, we've been able to come up with granular simulations of this based on the work of many people and some famous physicists. But we've nailed it, and we're getting results which were very close to the results that Michael got 20 years ago when he last did this. So we're in the right ballpark. Several papers agree with us, but these are coming out of our work, and in particular Joseph's work, and it's looking great.
So
and to move forwards a little bit with that, that being said, it doesn't mean we didn't have any issues with fine-tuning this. We had an initial idea how we wanted to do this. We had our issues. At one point, I probably told Michael this isn't possible.
Right? You did, right? You did. You're I'm not sure this is going to work.
And then about a week later, once I added in so many of these other factors and we adjusted a few things, I was like, Michael, this is possible. And so those are the things. This didn't come without struggle, basically, right, is what I am saying.
The thing that's making it possible is the bit you're going to get your name on the patent of. That's the key to this.
I am somewhat famous for the phrase, quote, "There's a profound difference between difficult, very, very hard, and impossible." It's important to know the difference.
Impossible takes a bit longer, right?
Yeah. Well,
Joseph,
we're at the very, very hard stage of things. What's that, John?
I was going to tell Joseph that him telling you that it was impossible with I had the same feeling about that when you told me the budget.
Yeah, also true. John, we're going to bring you up and talk about trusses, please, and other things.
Okay, trusses. So why is LiftPort interested in trusses? Well,
I'm gonna jump in here for a second because Wes asked me to like outline the system a little bit because not everybody understands it.
You do that.
Yeah, let me just kind of break in for a second. I think everybody on this call knows about the Earth elevator. You have a centripetal system, you have a ball and a string, spinning it over your head, the string in the middle stays straight. That is the traditional Earth elevator frame of mind, centripetal elevator. A lunar elevator is what's known as a gravitational elevator. Different animals, different physics, different system. At the end of the day, you still get a straight string that you can clamp onto the edges and climb back and forth. But a lunar elevator works different. The physics are different. So you have the ball of the Earth on one side, the ball of the moon, much smaller, much farther away on the other side. And there's this magic zone called the Lagrange point. It's the gravitational middle between the Earth and the moon. And as long as you can balance in that space, you have a pretty free gravitational ride. You can do an awful lot there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to launch from the Earth, normal rocketry, out to the Lagrange point. We drop the string down to the surface of the moon, sink in and stay there. That's the first node. That's called the anchor. We have 7 nodes. That's the first one. Connected to the node is Greenwich Station because it's at 0, on the moon, and Greenwich is 0 on the Earth. So we're going to call it Greenwich Station. It sinks in at Sinus Midday. So that's the second node. Along the way, you've got the ribbon that reaches all the length of it. And you have the lifters that climb back and forth. And then at the Lagrange point, you've got 2 other assets. You've got the truss, which is probably the very first thing that goes up. And you've got LiftPort Station. That's our commercial space station. That station can be as big as we want it to be. And that's not hyperbole. We've got physics to back that up. Normally, L1 is considered an unstable position, but because we are being held taut by the ribbon to the moon, we are in fact co-orbiting with the moon. We are connected to the moon. And then the final piece, back towards Earth, not touching, it's still a long ways away from the Earth. We've got the counterweight. So those are the 7 nodes. Anchor, Greenwich Station, lifters, ribbons, truss, LiftPort Station, and the counterweight. So I just want to put that whole box in there. We're pretty interested in all of these parts. We've done a lot of different parts of these. So let's go ahead and switch this over to John so he can talk about the truss. And yeah, I do kind of make the mistake of, slipping in counterweight versus countermass. Of course, I tend to be relaxed about the differences, but it actually does matter. So mass, yeah. Okay, go ahead, John.
The truss that lives at L1. It's a critical piece because it's what joins the lunar leg to the Earth leg, the counterweight. And it needs to transfer the momentum through it effectively, but it also needs to leverage our pattern so that it doesn't snap any cables and it doesn't get pulled off station too much. The interesting thing about Lunar L1 is it's a saddle, right? It's not a gravity well like being over a black hole. It's a saddle, so it's more the top of a hill, and if you become unstable, you'll roll either way down the hill. You'll head towards the moon or you'll head towards the Earth. So there must be station keeping. But because of that, let's envisage a long truss, hundreds of yards long, which we think will be there before long. You're actually getting gravitational stress, tidal stresses on either end of it, and your field tubes. And so you need you don't want a rigid truss. You want a truss which is capable of responding to those stresses, because that'll prevent things getting pushed out of position. We need a conformable truss system. And what are we going to do with that truss system? Well, first of all, trusses, up until recently, they've always been flat packed on Earth. You get them into orbit and you inflate them, you pump gas into them, you pump water and it freezes and they become bigger. But that's pretty much gone as of now, apart from for solar cells. People are going to be assembling them on orbit. And there's a series of missions being launched. The DARPA's got Nomad, which is specifically assembling truss in orbit. There's another name that I picked up here, Opterus. They're actually 3D printing tubing in space, truss. It looks like rock and roll box truss. And they've also got a pre-stress, which I think might be the right one for us. It's a ring truss, but it's sprung with cables. So it's flexible, but under tension, the cables hold it. So it'll want to be a slow curve. If it's a mile long, it will do that. And it won't be in stress if it does that. It'll just very happily do that. So I think that's interesting. And the limit to the truss, these things are going to flat pack. It's shipping raw materials up and then welding. Ion beam welding was just tested and they did great. And there's more welding projects coming up at the end of this year. These things can be built. And we need to build one. And what will we do when we build it? Well, it's transferring the momentum from one point to another, but it'll also be a logistics hub for us because there's cargo coming up, there's cargo coming in. It's not just a straight railroad line. We'll have to hold things and schedule things, and not all customers will want things at the same time. We'll need to hold logistics and plan loads, and there'll be some load balancing and some cost accommodations. So there will be parking. It will be like consider it a semi parking lot. We're going to have pre-configured logistics packages which will be tied into the truss and wait there. And because we've got a huge piece of truss in a very good orbit, what we can do is make a lot of electricity. We can store water. We can have sewer hookups. So in effect, if you're planning a long distance mission to one of the other planets, you can pull up to a trailer park. You can hook up sewer and water and power and sit there while you plan and get your logistics deliver, assemble the mission, assemble extra stages, then you can go on your way. We also want to use it as a shelter of last resort. That's a really big thing. No one's building that at the moment. We want to see some kind of a universal docking configuration. We can't build this alone. So the world needs to help us. But some kind of universal docking configuration where if your spacecraft is dying, like Apollo 13 was dying, they wouldn't have had to go all the way around the moon and freeze all the way home. They could have pulled up at L1, got out of the craft and waited for help to arrive and years food so they could live and oxygen. So that's very important. Prepping for Mars. There's an old medieval thing, which is how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Well, how many trusses can dance on the end of an L1? And the answer is one. There can be only one. Do you feel it, lad? The quickening. There is only one, and it's going to be big. It's going to be a parking lot and a trailer park and an assembly area, and probably making power, selling power, and crunching numbers, and who knows what. And eventually, there will be living accommodations in it. So it's going to be big. It's going to be the only one that could be there. It's going to be very necessary for the LiftPort system, but it's going to be even more necessary for everyone that wants to go further out than the moon. And I'm talking about asteroid mining, Mars, right, and all the planets around the major planets.
We're gonna talk about that quite a bit towards the end. We're gonna have an open discussion and the. You can't build a thing as big as we're trying to build without a certain amount of ambition, but this couldn't happen without other credible systems, good engineering, good capital that are also trying to build big ideas out there. So we're going to have to be partnered with other people. We're going to have to bring them on. Thanks, John. I'm going to switch gears here just for a moment. I'm going to go back to our website here, and I'm going to point out one of the things that John was just talking about. We've got this new tool coming up on the website. We talked about it a little bit 2 weeks ago. It was not ready for prime time yet. It is getting closer to prime time. But this is really designed to help people understand the value of that L1 position, right? Earth, Moon, Lagrange One. Not everybody knows what that means. I hope if they read this mini site that they understand what that looks like. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring the price down from $500,000 a kilo down to 50,000 a kilo. Importantly, that's only getting cargo from our elevator down to the ground. You still got to get to the elevator. That doesn't change. There's a lot of information in here about the system and what we think is going to be an optimized version of getting from the Earth out to VLEO. There's going to be tugs that get you out to L1, and then you're going to have choices. You can take propulsion down to the moon, or you can take our elevator. And then the reverse turn is mass drivers or propulsion or the elevator to get off the moon, and then down mass all the way home. And that's going to be this optimized transportation stack. So watch for that. That'll be up on the website here in the next few days. We've already had this this map if you wanted to get from where you are to where you want to go. That's all coming online. We're pretty happy about that. This is what John was talking about just a moment ago about these saddles and gravity. You got to deal with gravity all the time, and so this is the gravity well of the moon, the gravity well of the Earth. I don't really love this graphic, so don't depend on it because there's some stuff that's kind of wonky about it. Like I said, we're still trying to put that together. But this is the stuff I want people to pay attention to, right? That if you want to go wherever you want to go, you want to launch you want to launch a 10-ton craft wherever, to the moon, to PN7, to Venus, to Mars. Look, this is how much cargo you can have for a 10-ton system versus how much propellant. This is how much propellant if you have to leave from the ground of Earth, and it's the same amount of cargo, 10 tons. It is bonkers that our system is 24 times more efficient. You need 49 times more fuel. And yeah, we know that right now you got to start from the Earth to go anywhere else you want to go. But eventually that's not going to be true. And that makes our position at L1 so much more important. So we're going to give this out to everybody to kind of start playing around with that. We've got a lot of little assumptions in here, so you can kind of look at how to read the chart methodologies. So, but this goes to the point that John was just talking about: safe havens, a little bit of cool animation. Head home to Earth. That's one option, but we'd like to give people a secondary option of head out to the L1 point. And we think that is a safer, faster solution for folks that are in trouble. So that's
Michael, real quick.
Yeah, please.
Just for the audience out there and for record, the cost from L1, and when you figure out the average cost of rockets to the surface of the moon, you figure out what to take out the distance from L1 to the surface. You can figure out the cost per kilogram for that to get to the surface of the moon from L1 in a rocket, and it's going to be $234,000 per kilogram. Let that sink in, because that's very significant.
Mhm.
Cost savings that we are able to create once we deploy, it changes the industry. It literally will change the industry. Period.
Everything. Yep. I'm gonna say thanks and a little appreciation to Joseph. In our backroom chat, he says, "I have to say that the LiftPort website looks way more fancy than when I learned about LiftPort." Joseph, when did you first send me a message? Was that like December, October last year, or January this year, something like that?
Probably like January or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, we're starting. We're in start mode here. I'm gonna answer Jason's question on the chat here. Sorry, we haven't been ignoring you, man. We just got a program we've been trying to stick with. But as we introduce more mass, can we also increase the size of the L1 point? All right, so the L1 point is really a mathematical idea. So don't think of it in terms of mass. It's not like that. Here's the Earth, here's the moon. The moon moves around the Earth, but it's not a perfect circle. It moves, sometimes it's closer in and sometimes it's farther out because it's an oval. It's a close circle, but it's not a circle. And that change, closer and farther, is called perturbation. And that perturbation is what makes L1, 2, and 3 unstable. And some of that information is in the website that you'll see in a couple days. That makes L1 unstable, which is why everybody has been ignoring it really since forever. L4 and 5 are reasonably stable. So it's not really a question of adding more mass at L1. What gives us the ability to build as big as we want is because we're connected to the moon. We are effectively an arm, a branch of the moon now. And because of that, enforced stability because of the string allows us to build as big as we want. To compare that to Skylab and Mir and ISS and the future versions of Voyager, Blue Origin system, Orbital Reef, Axiom, Vast, all of those folks, Gravitics, all of those folks are size constrained because as they're close to the atmosphere of the Earth, they hit molecule after molecule of Earth's atmosphere, even far out in space, and that slows them down. And if they don't get refueled and repositioned, they will crash. All right. So every Earth-based space station is size limited, mass limited, because they will crash if they don't get refueled. So that's the difference between us and them. John, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, building at L1, we can go very large indeed, but as you get larger, the further you get away from the L1 point, and there is a literal point where it is, there'll be more stresses induced in what you build. So you'll have to build a system that likes to be stressed and can accommodate things. And there will be tidal forces and librations which will cause ripples to move through this. And it needs to conform to the space that it's in. That can be designed, and there's a company called TPS, Tension Precision Structures. That's what they do. They make a truss which is strung and it's held together.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that a little bit and say at that L1 point, remember weight is what mass times gravity, right? Whatever gravity is at that point. But beyond that, that doesn't mean that mass is necessarily negligible and that you can really disregard it. Because remember, we're going to be in tension at all points. So we still need to be able to hold on to whatever that true mass is. So we can't ignore it. but we definitely have room to build out as a company.
Okay. Who's up next? Wes, let's talk about claim filing and what a claim means and doesn't mean.
Okay. Well, I first
And
want to
also, please answer Jason's question.
Yeah, exactly. So the Outer Space Treaty, the original Outer Space Treaty of 1967, prohibited countries from making claim for basically annexing outer space. Did not say anything about private entities, and why would it have? Because at that time you had the U.S. and the Soviet Union at the negotiating table during the height of the space race. To include private property in this treaty would have been a fatal mistake. So right now, do individual entities have the right to lease space that created a position other than Earth? The Outer Space Treaty does not forbid this. So for that reason, over the past nearly 20 years, I've executed several different claims to several different celestial bodies under several different administrations. The concept being get confirmation that just a claim in and of itself, you're not asking the country in question to grant you or basically or otherwise have your back on this. Is it a violation of the Outer Space Treaty? Which the confirmation that I've got, it is not. It is not a violation. So going forth with that, if I can share my screen here.
Do you notice that Sean's cat just jumped in front of his screen? Yes, please share your screen. Right. Yep.
Are you seeing a document here?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Okay. This is so what I've done with this recent claim is I'll get down to the claim text. It's basically a notice of intent to preserve property and mineral interest, where just as Space Rights LLC as a juridical person have made a claim to we won't name the celestial body yet. It goes through a period. It goes through a step of certifications where the notary public gets certified by the county, that gets certified by the state, and then that gets certified by the U.S. Secretary of State. The purpose of this is not just for a series of certifications, but for at that point, the U.S. Secretary of State is allowed to contact the competent authority and say, "Is this going to get us in trouble or not?" So this certification that you see right here is for international legal use abroad. With this document and with the one I most recently got, you could take it to other countries and get the same sort of confirmation. So these are the two most recent under the Secretary of State of Wyoming, which is where I have Space Rights LLC filed. I also added this claim as a amendment to the Articles of Incorporation. So, which is this certification right here. I've taken that and recorded it with the Wyoming Secretary of State. I mean, with the Sheridan County, Wyoming County Recorder, so that it is permanently recorded. So I've basically recorded this claim under three different archives, so I can get further certification. And basically archive it in several different ways so I can get the same kind of certification. The most recent of which is called an apostille certification. Going back to this document, about 2/3 of the countries on Earth have come up with a treaty called the Apostille Treaty, which minimizes the amount of underlying certifications that you have to get for legal use abroad. This most recent one that I got back was it started as what's called a miscellaneous case filing, where I just placed the same document on record with one of the U.S. federal courts. So what's called a miscellaneous action, where the case, there's no plaintiff, there's no defendant really. It just places it on record, which can now go into the National Archive. The certification that comes upon that is from the U.S. Department of Justice, and then this is why I did the apostille certification this way.
So in our conversations, so I thought it was a really big deal that Secretary of State Marco Rubio signed a document a couple weeks ago, and you're like, yeah, that's cool, but hold my beer because it's this apostille.
It's really this apostille.
So describe why. So not and this isn't your first Secretary of State document. You've gotten 7 signatures.
It's 7. Yeah, I've done this under the past 7
secretaries of state. To me, that's a big deal because I'm a novice and I don't know this stuff. Why is this apostille document one step beyond that? Why does this matter?
Under the apostille convention, that you can also get this on the state level, but some countries don't respect that. Okay. This gets the most respect out of two. I'd say 2/3 of the countries on Earth. So it's a guarantee that if
you were to take this document to, I'm just going to make something up. This is completely hypothetical. There's no reason for me to say this, but if you were going to take this to Nigeria and say, hey, we've just claimed this rock. Do you want to take a look? Do you want to partner? Do you want to help co-develop? This would be a legal document you could take to XYZ nation.
Yes.
Excellent.
I forget whether Nigeria is a part of that convention or not, but one of the two would be.
I'm not trying to pick any particular country, but Nigeria has been on my brain a lot lately. It's been
they've got a space program.
I've got to say, guys, I think me and Joseph are pretty cool coming up with a patentable strain reduction system. But I think this is every bit as cool that you put this together. It's very creative, and it's never been done before, and that's huge. You're setting the stage for the rest of the industry. Powerful.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely necessary if you want to be a commercial space industry, to have this.
It's to basically, it's basically, it goes beyond the U.S. You basically want to get the same kind of confirmation and like as many spacefaring nations as you possibly can that there's no violation of what you're doing under the Outer Space Treaty. Again, you're not asking for any other endorsement than just that. But this gives you unless you're a citizen of that other country and can start fresh from the bottom up with the notarial certifications, this gives you a way in if you're starting out of the U.S.
So Luxembourg is well known for being interested in property rights and mineral rights in space. Now that you've got this apostille, are you able to take it? I threw out Nigeria as a rando question, but Luxembourg is not a random question. Are you able to take it?
I've taken one of these to Luxembourg before, and what they said, like they put it on file, and they said, you know what, this was the same year that they're like, we're actually passing a favorable legislation in favor of it.
Right.
So like they didn't see the need to like give any other certification because they were ready to they were putting their final certification on their new legislation, which is favorable to resource utilization, but it stops short. It stops short of you have to have a business registered in Luxembourg to proceed. I didn't know that at the time.
Okay, all right. Well, that could be on the to-do list.
I have family there.
What's that?
He's got family.
I have family there.
Sure. Jason's asking, is Nevada one of them? No, he's registered in
let's see,
Georgia and Wyoming.
Georgia, Tennessee, California, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and then on the federal level.
Yeah. Bonkers. All right. Thanks a lot, Wes. I want to echo what John just said. Every bit as important, right? What I said earlier about what Sean's doing with Bear Futures. LiftPort operates really paying attention to 4 buckets. And this wasn't on our to-do list when we made the plan for today's talk, but I'm going to just riff off of this for a second. We operate on something called the Numenia process. It's a somewhat complex framework to tackle complex problems. And without digging into it, maybe we can talk about next show, because that probably is interesting to people. But you start with vision, mission, values. You go to policies, objectives, strategies, and tactics. Then you start breaking into what we call the action matrix, which looks at your stakeholders. Who cares about what you're doing? We do this show because of stakeholders. Then it looks at your challenges, and the four big buckets of the challenges are hardware, business, outreach, and framework. So if you look at our screen here, Sean's looking at the financing. That's the business piece. John and Joseph are looking at the hardware, right? I tend to spend some time on outreach. I think telling our story is important. Sean takes time to do outreach, and then Wes is looking at framework, right? So even though we're a super small company, we've got all four of the big buckets covered. Now we all work hard to help each other because it's a small team and a lot has to happen there. But sorry, I didn't mean to riff off of that, but I felt like as we look at who's on the screen and what everybody's doing, these are core foundational pieces of what we're trying to do at LiftPort. Sean, wait, what are you saying, Joseph? Qualified. All right. Sean, go ahead and let's hear about missions to market.
All right, let's shift things a little bit. I'm going to talk about something I've been writing about for a while, and it's called mission to market. The concept of mission versus market is basically originated with Dan Garrison. He runs the Orbital Progress Foundation that really focuses on turning the commercial space industry from being just a mission set, because if you don't have an economic market, you are just a mission set, and to being a market. And that got me to thinking about a lot of things about space. And I did a deep dump this morning of just where my thoughts were going. I wrote up an article just basically how this unfolds in my head, which is kind of chaotic. So you don't want to be there. You need to let me write it out so it's safe for everybody else to consume. But at the end of the day, you got to have a market to have a commercial space industry. Bottom line. If you don't, you're just doing a mission for somebody else. And my concern, I've written about SpaceX, how I'd like maybe SpaceX is too. It's their own company. This basically their own market. We shouldn't use them as a proxy for the rest of the space industry. Yes, we still benefit from the exposure that they get, but you're comparing a garden of different types of fruits and vegetables to one apple, and that's not fair to anybody. SpaceX is going to do what SpaceX does. All right. But it does point to something that I've also said, is that maybe that's the way forward. We find our market and integrate our system to get to market. I could see pharmaceuticals doing that if there's a economic driver for it, especially if they can secure down mass, which is one of the things I've been chomping on about, is down mass, because it closed the economic loop. So, I mean, that's something I was thinking about. And then I was like, well, what happens if if you get these big corporations come in and they just have their own vertical integration and soak up all these companies, and then basically what was commercial space industry is now an R&D for these industries to come in and build their own vertical integration. And so, but that was just a thought experiment. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's just a thought experiment. And then I went on to take a look at the moon. One of the issues I always had with the moon colonization is water. You got to have a substantial supply of water. It has to be economically available water. In other words, you make more economics off the moon to replenish your water to have a colony. Doesn't mean you're not going to have a mission there. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a station there. But it's not a colony until you can economically recover your water. And that can come from the Earth, because we don't know. We know there's water on the moon. That we assume there is. We don't know how much of a supply it is. So that was always something that was always struck me as odd. But going back to a market, what does a market do? It brings an economic, it makes it economically viable instead of being a burden on the host. So that's basically what I'm looking at the commercial space industry. It's what it interests me when I came back. I said, we got to do this so we're not tethered to being enslaved to government contracts. We need to be tethered to being enslaved to the humanity. And part of how being enslaved to humanity is provide something for them. And as Dr. I'm stumped now, but there was a guy, and you'll know who I'm talking about, Michael. I'm having a brain freeze, and he said it on the show. Without space, we will not be prosperous. He said space is the key to humanity's prosperity. And it was Dr. David
Livingston, absolutely. Yeah.
And he was very much right. That is turning space into a market instead of a mission.
I love that. We're going to talk some more about that in our kind of open discussion. Just letting the team know we're a slightly behind schedule, which actually helps because that gives us a little bit of time to do our open discussion. I'm going to take the mic for a moment and do another screen share. Before I do that, I want to just say, our show 2 weeks ago that was kind of out of sequence. I was off at Space Camp and I built a CubeSat. Hello, my name is Michael. See that? It was super fun to do that. So I want to give a shout out to the teachers in space people. I spent 4 days in a really terrific classroom, and they were very helpful. I really liked what I learned. I really liked the class and the community. So just want to shout out to them. Thanks for that. This is the very first CubeSat I ever built, because that's not the thing that I work on. So it was really fun. Shout out to Joe Luttrell at Cube, because he designed some of the early the early frame, the structure, the truss system of this CubeSat. So it's really nice to kind of see the community working together there. And then the other thing I want to share, which goes back to why I just talked about the challenges. Wait a second, where am I at here? There we are. A different piece of the website that y'all will not have access to is we've got an admin piece, and what we decided to do is to really push onto LinkedIn. And okay, is that really, really something that LiftPort has to do to build an elevator on the moon? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to throw down the gauntlet and say yes. That's our reach, that's our community, that's our professional experts are all in that community. So we've decided that we're going to go all in. And so we built an internal tool for the team that is highly detailed. We're going to target, get this, we're going to target 1 million impressions a year per person, which, by the way, is 19,000 impressions a week. So we're starting this. And there's a full wizard on getting set up and who are you, and walk through the steps. We've got our roster built. We can add more. I told you we're going to be working really hard to bring on our advisory team. They're going to get into this thing. basically the idea is we want to touch 1 million people digitally and use that as building our commercial sector, building out our industrial infrastructure network, building out the brain power that we need to get the elevator built, to build the relationships to the capital markets and to the education community. In just 1 week of experiments for me, I started basically at zero. I got 12,000 impressions this week. I'm pretty happy about that. I don't care about the number so much. What I care about is that I got 25 meetings this week scheduled through LinkedIn. That is unheard of. That is unprecedented. I have never been able to do that before ever. And it solidifies how valuable LinkedIn is going to be to our team. We've got logging. We've got a process. Each process has sub-processes, built checklists, milestones, rewards, the team getting to 100,000, the team getting to 500,000. I'm going to just shout out to Sean, who starts at about 500,000 impressions a year just with his baseline. So we all know he's going to beat us, but I'm still going to do my best. And a 20-page manual on how best practices on how to use LinkedIn better. So this doesn't seem like it is Space Elevator, but I assure you that we can't build this thing without a lot of people involved, and this is going to be our method and process. So pretty excited about this. We're going to start it up this week, and it is an experiment. We will update this manual on a regular basis. This was version 5 as I was building it, but we're gonna update this constantly with continual feedback. So that was the part I was saying a minute ago about, you can't, this isn't just about the engineering, it's also community building. And oh, thanks, Jason, appreciate it. He just said he's on board and happy to help. Thank you, buddy. I'm looking forward to it. I know that we're going to talk later this week. You're one of the 25 meetings that I mentioned. So with that, I'm going to switch gears. I think it is Joseph up next. No, it's not. Is it Wes? Hold on. Wes, let's talk about the white paper, and then we're going to go Joseph, John, and then I've got a kind of a big surprise that I've been waiting for the end. We are at an hour and a half already, so Wes, Joseph, John, go a little tighter so we can get our discussion in.
I can go pretty tight here. So I'm developing this white paper. It's basically for the other space lawyers. There's 3 things that I think it's important that everybody admits here. Like, one, it's for years people have been looking at the lack of inclusion of private citizens in the Outer Space Treaty, and I just did that as well. I said, okay, let's go forward. But it's also important to talk about the United Nations treaties that do prohibit private property rights. Like under the law of the sea, the ocean floor, under international waters, they have that clause there where it says also like no national appropriation, but also no natural persons. The Moon Treaty as well, no national appropriation, but also no natural persons. So another reason that the Outer Space Treaty doesn't, like, it would have clearly so stated this. There's clearly language in other United Nations treaties that could have been said, but aren't. Now, as far as the second big part about this is that so far the national legislation, U.S., Luxembourg, UAE, and Japan, favorable to space resources, saying that they can be owned.
Give me that list again. The favorable
USA, Luxembourg, UAE, and Japan. They stop short of they don't mention they only mention extracted resources. They don't mention resources in place. And it's not to say that in none of this, like, this is forward progress. the fact that there's favorable legislation, including with the Artemis Accords, um, which is basically a group of nations saying that, well, I forget how many are on board right now, but it's a lot. It's like in the 60s now. That
70s,
private research utilization is okay, but it doesn't say anything about resources in place. This does not forbid, just because the law hasn't been written yet, it doesn't backwardly. None of this national legislation nor the Artemis Accords say, but in situ resources in place, you can't have those. It doesn't say that in any of those. Now the law hasn't been written yet for that, but I just think it's the wrong way to go forward, saying that, well, right now you can have extracted resources, but you can't have resources in place. First off, none of those pieces of legislation say that. Second off, can we all get on the same page and say this has been a positive precedent so far with the extracted resources? The resources in place still have the potential to be accounted for. And those are the two main things. I'm not going to read my intro to this verbatim, but just the two things that I want to get the other space lords to agree with is that there are treaties that say that you can't, UN treaties that say you can't have certain kind of rights beyond national borders. The Outer Space Treaty clearly didn't say that, and even though these new pieces of legislation and the Artemis Accords, bilateral negotiations, are favorable to extracted resources, that's nothing against resources in place.
Right. So tell me this. There's 4 nations that have good legislation, useful legislation around this topic. There's 70 nations that have signed the Artemis Accords. Wes, I'm going to ask you to dig into the Artemis Accords for our next show, because I think that's something that folks should understand. This white paper, if it's you who posts it and it's you who's pushing these claims for the last 20 years, by yourself, it's really hard to push that rock uphill. Why get 5, 10, 25, 100, 1,000 space lawyers to sign this? Is so that you're pushing the rock at the same time, that each of you makes it a little bit easier. So
to get us all on the same page. Exactly. Right. Because so I think in a lot of ways we are.
Well, but that's your intuition, right? Yeah. So that's why the signatures matter, is to get to get people to stand up and say, nope, this is the rock I'm going to push. I'm going to help Wes push this rock. Because it's not just about you. It's not about LiftPort. It's not about Interloon or Offworld and Stellar World. It's not about, Christian Savage and her Savage architecture. It's not about Dr. Tompkins and his team that's trying to put data centers on the moon. Everybody needs this. Every company, even the nations, whether they agree or not, everybody needs this one rule that they all can push this rock together and agree on, that this is how we're going to proceed. And it's the wild, wild west. So I'm really grateful. What John said a little while ago, like, this is a breakthrough thing. It may not look as sexy to the VCs. It was like, what's your patent count? Like, they know how to ask that question. They don't know how to ask what are your governing principles? What are the rights that you have claimed? They don't even know that they should ask that question. So hats off to you for that. It's quite good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Lauren, right. Great. All right. Lauren's up next. Yes.
Yep. All right. Earlier I talked about Moore's circle very briefly. I'm going to go into that more and demonstrate my simulation. Trying to think about what would be best to describe this with. So we're gonna start with what Moore's circle is. It's basically a way to tell how the angle of twist is going to affect the stress and strain on an object. So if I have an object and I twist it, that suddenly is going to have different stresses and strains and forces on it in different ways than it would if I didn't twist it. And that's very important for us because as our payloads get closer to the moon, our ribbon starts twisting more. So we need to understand exactly how this is going to affect us. And we need to also think about, okay, well, if we have more strain than stress at this particular time, is that going to break something? Do we need to add more material here? Do we just let it go? What do we do in that situation? So that's very important for us. And that's something that I've been really working on in this simulation. That's actually my individual project, is adding basically making an add-on for this overall capstone project.
And that's part of the larger Alexandria development of AI tools to help us build faster, build more efficiently, integrate that you do something and then other people and the other people and the other people. So we build together, right?
Yep.
So Moore's circle, you've got a ribbon, it's long and thin, and all of our diagrams always show it's a single ribbon and it's a straight line. But reality is it's going to move constantly. It's going to move from the sun. It's going to expand and contract thermally. There's going to be various shocks on it as it moves in and out of the shadow of the moon and shadow of the earth, limited. It's going to have a nearly 500-degree time change, a temperature change, delta T, and this thing is going to wobble. It's going to move. So that's really where Moore's circle comes into play, right?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. We want to keep things under tension as much as we can. That's how this is going to work. But you can't have everything under perfect tension at all times. That's just not realistic.
Right. All right. So here's your simulator. What do you got?
So here's my simulator. It shows a lot of our tension. Like here, it shows our tension profile, strains. It'll show the displacement in each direction. And some of this Connell, John, gave to me. And he really let me go off in my own area, and we can see over here safety factors and all this other stuff. So that was pretty much what I was given. So I added in these distributions, thresholds we need to meet. And if you see things over thresholds or anything else, it doesn't mean that we can't make something work or whatever. It means that we need to refine our plan. That's basically all this does, is it tells us, okay, we're going to refine our plan, and we maybe need a material that meets these requirements. That's if we see something over, it's not end all be all, I promise, guys. And so if
we had a couple scares there. We had a couple scares.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did. So if we start loads, you'll start to see things moving around here, and you can see pieces already jumping on both ends. And you can see loads and stresses, and you can send anti-waves back through. You can see if we don't meet it particularly at the exact right time, if it amplifies the issue that we're trying to solve, or if we get it perfectly, it'll kill the issue. There's all of that in here. And if we move on to here, you can see the stress states. That stuff will also be pulled from here, and you can also manually put in what you need to do. You can change the tension and the Young's module depending on what different kind of material you want to use. So when John comes in here, if he says, okay, well, I don't like this material, I want to use a different material, then he can basically implement that he can basically just change it from this interface. He doesn't have to go and actually change the code, which is great. And then, you could go change it and you can then pull it from the main simulator again to get it back to what you want it to be. You can, something very important here with More Circle is everything's going to change. The twistiness of it, depending on how much your load is and the size of it. The size is very important. If the different dimensions will change how your ribbon twists, and so that this allows for that. And one of these things here, I think it's over here. You can change how the thing is hugging the ribbon and all that other stuff, and you can analyze this, and you can see where the principal stresses are and where you might have some problems here. So that's really what I've been working on. It's quite in depth, but yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Nice job. Thank you. Okay. Wes is asking for me to talk about the rocket test. Is that what you're asking for, Wes?
Yeah, or for anybody to.
Sure. Normally we have Latrell do that, but he is off. He's doing a night sky. He's going to one of the dark sky stations and spending the next 4 days looking at the sky. So good for him. He's off tonight. No big changes. We still anticipate flying in November like we planned. The InnoSpace rocket is still the riskiest rocket in space. Not a lot of updates on that topic. So is there something specific you want to know about?
No, I didn't. Actually, I didn't mean to interrupt Joseph there. I just that was just before.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's all good. Go ahead, John. We're going to talk about materials, and then I've got by the way, we only have 17 minutes, so let's you talk materials, I'll do the announcement, and we'll have a short discussion. You're on mute again. For those that don't know, we're always trying to mute ourselves when the other person's talking, and so it's it's normal. Go ahead, John.
Materials. Just a thought on the industry and materials development. So, in around about 1920, there was probably one plastic. It was called Bakelite. It was a phenol-based plastic. And there was natural rubber called gutta percha, which they still use in root canals. And there was nothing. What caused an explosion in polymers was the Second World War. And that created hundreds of new recipes. And then going on from that, they tweaked and improved them. But then in the 60s, 1966, an amazing year, Star Trek and Batman came out and Lost in Space, but also PVC was invented as a clothing material. And plastic phones were injection molded for the first time. So plastics. Since then, we've seen carbon fibers come along, and we've seen a few high temperature plastics, but there's not been the high pressure that came out of the Second World War and the Apollo project. Apollo did Mylar and a million other reflective films, very important. There's no pressure. What we're starting to see today, after this is post SpaceX IPO, is new flavors of money coming into the market. And new companies who don't normally talk to the space industry are suddenly interested in talking to us about our needs and what's coming because they see that there's money in it. So we're walking into a new World War II or space age evolution. And there's a lot of really cool materials can be made. So we all know about composites and carbon fibers, which they're great, but they scare me because they have such a harsh failure mode. But we were building spacecraft out of 5000 series aluminum gravitics, and we were doing that because it's easy to weld, really easy to form. It takes the pressure you need to put in a NASA-rated spacecraft, and it's affordable to build a 40 by 40 spacecraft. It would be possible if you had the right material to build the same thing out of a polymer. It's not today because they haven't invented the polymer, but there are companies looking at doing that, and that would be a radical change because it would remove forming and welding, and it would let us have habitats for the moon and for space that come out in one piece in mass quantities. You could put 20 on a rocket, and that's really interesting. So I think the theme is, because of the new flow of money, because of the attention, very, very large companies are stepping up to the industry and saying, what can we do for you? What are you missing? We've seen a huge amount of development in graphene and in nanotubes, and there's these massive carbon nanotubes now, which are structures and big. But we're about to see the same thing in plastics and loaded plastics, or polymers and loaded polymers. And I think it's worth remembering 3D printing. There's a material called Windform XT2, which is used by our people to print small sats. It's lighter than aluminum. It's very nearly as strong. We can't quite print a spacecraft with that. It doesn't re-emit. Aluminum re-emits a bit. Steel re-emits like X-rays. It's a problem. It doesn't re-emit. And there's also a huge amount of effort going into radiation protection materials. Cosmic Shielding and the RAD team have got materials, very thin materials that do a lot of shielding. You can shield your NVIDIA card fairly well with a new polymer. Right. So the message is, come up with blue sky views for what you need in your industry. You're using aluminum, you're using steel. What if you could do it lighter and stronger? What would you want to see? What is that material recipe? Take that and get it to a company that's interested in investing in space, and you'll be amazed at the response you'll get. People will be able to make it. It's not been like this for 40, 50 years.
Nope. It's amazing. All right. So the big announcement just follows right on that, right? About a week and a half ago, a rando fan, and I'm using air quotes for that, a rando fan sent a message through our website wanting to ask about material sciences. And I misjudged that original email, and I thought it was just a rando fan. So I'm like, sure, I'm happy to talk to y'all. He was a PhD. I looked him up. I don't ever talk to rando people. I only vet people, and then I decide. But he was an interesting guy and cool. All right. So then all of a sudden, I was not prepared for this, but it turned into he brought 5 of his other corporate friends, and it was a formal meeting on Teams. And all of a sudden, I realized, oh, this is a real thing. Turns out, and I'm not going to name the organization, I will tell you it's a Japanese conglomerate, which I don't have a lot of access to Japanese conglomerates. I will tell you that they are a top 25 materials company in the world. They would not qualify for the Global 500 because the bottom of that is 25 billion a year, and this company only makes 8 billion a year, but they definitely are in the top 25 global manufacturers, materials manufacturers. They're definitely in the Japanese 500. This is a real organization. And get this, they have no experience in space. That's not what they do. Not one of their materials is space rated, and yet here's this $8 billion organization with a giant research team. By the way, they have 12 sites in the United States. We were talking to one of them in California. That is their research and development group. And what they asked for was, what's 5 years out, 20 years out, 10 years out that we can start designing for now that can become a product line in 5 and 10 years. That was a very interesting conversation. It turned into an hour and a half. I had my 6 guys on my team. They had 6 folks on their team, including their corporate venture arm, which I was not expecting at all. And basically, we first started talking about strings and elevators, and then the conversation blossomed very naturally, very organically to look at our $700 billion industry, $686 billion industry. We're scheduled to go to 1.5 trillion in the next 5 to 8 years. And there's an argument it might double from there in the same amount of time, and it might hit $3 trillion as an industry. They were unaware of that. They were unaware of a $3 trillion industry. I looked it up. Comparing a $3 trillion industry to global GDP, gross domestic product, that's like being unaware of France. France is a $3 trillion economy. That's like being unaware of France. And yeah, we're not there yet. We're at the $686 billion. But if you look out their 10-year projections of what the materials they want, that's like being unaware of France. So we started talking about our industry. We started talking about what's happening, not just elevators on the moon, but the entire ecosystem. There's probably 25 global launch systems, 5 in the United States. 20 global launch systems, probably 30 individual launch vehicles in the next 10 years. There's 6 to 10 space stations. There's 6 to 15 space tugs and cyclers. There's our elevator. Like, all of these things are all coming online, and they all have materials science problems. It's a 500-degree temperature change in moments when the sun moves in and out of shadow on our ribbon. That there may not be a material for that. Certainly coatings are a problem. So this organization does not make our kind of string, so I want to be really clear about that, but they make that interface that anything that touches our string needs to have. So what we're doing, and this is the announcement, what we're doing is we're pulling together 20 or 25 companies in the industry to come together as a learning session, as a forum where we help them understand the industry. They look at the problems and the materials problems that this industry is going to encounter, and then hopefully we facilitate a bit of matchmaking process. We're going to have some speed dating. We're going to have some presentations by some of these companies. We're definitely biasing towards companies that can buy product now, like larger organizations, but we also want to showcase the smaller companies that are up and coming to show what the demand and what the needs are. So let me pull up my notes here. We're going to host this Tuesday, August 18th. It is a free event. We're going to host it on YouTube. There won't be any intellectual property sharing. There won't be any inventive work. There won't be any trade secrets. There won't be anything that's ITAR restricted. It's going to be a free event. We host it the same way we do this show. Send us a message if you want to be on the list. Send a message to our website. It's going to be at 8 o'clock a.m. Osaka time, 4 o'clock West Coast p.m., 4 o'clock p.m. West Coast time, and 7 p.m. East Coast time. It's going to be 4 hours long, so it's going to be a bit of a marathon, going to be a bit of a slog, but this is the first thing that we've ever done like this. We have hosted, you heard Sean talk, we've hosted hundreds of hours of online conferences. We're very well equipped to do this, but this is going to be the showcase for the Industrial Infrastructure Network. This is going to be our first new event for the Industrial Infrastructure Network. We talked about that 2 shows ago. And we'd love to have both companies and individuals come in. We're going to be very selective on who we put up in front of this company, of this big conglomerate, but we'd love to have an entire industry support this thing. So with that, I'm going to break off. We only have 4 minutes, y'all. So who wants to say something very quickly about this? And then we got to sign off. John, do you want to talk about it a little bit?
I know everyone that touches hardware in space has a blue sky dream of a polymer material. And for the first time, as I said, in a generation, there is money there to develop that for you. So if you tell these people what you want, there's a very good chance that they'll make it. And think things like IsoGrid being made out of a polymer and working every bit as well as an aluminum part. That is huge. Walls of spacecraft, which are naturally radiation inhibiting with no re-emission, and that you can mold connectors and brackets into rather than having to weld them into. It's an exciting time. Talk to them, ask for what you want, and don't be shy to ask for what you want. Transparent aluminum.
Tell them what your needs are. Tell them what your needs are. And piggybacking on what Michael said about, the industry being the size of France, a lot more companies are going to be paying attention. This is not just a one-off event. There's going to be a series. As soon as they let us know, we can host multiple, have these come up, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that this industry needs that they don't have. And there's a lot of new innovations that's coming along, and this is an exciting time to be a part of this. So,
we're going to do this quarterly because we think that the industry really needs it, and we're happy to be in that, relationship connector position. I want to remind people, like, you can't really see this, and I'm not going to tell you very much about this, but LiftPort has always been in the material sciences game. And this is an alloy that we invented a long time ago that hasn't quite hit the market yet. But everybody knows we were in carbon nanotubes, one of the first 500 labs in the world working on carbon nanotubes. This alloy came out of it. I have some other examples up on my shelf. The key to the moon is lubricants, seals, filters, that sort of thing. We are so excited to build a partnership and alliance with this organization. We think it's a very big deal, and we really want you to be a part of it. So please sign on. With that, we're going to sign off. Sean, thanks so much. Wes, Jonathan, Joseph, Lauren, we're going to miss you. We're glad that you've been here for the whole summer, and you've done a terrific job.
Yeah.
Thanks to the whole team. Thanks for the whole team, y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Make us proud.
Right on. All right.